Chapter 7, in which Mr. and Mrs. Pratchett talk to the children at night. Brock Kincaid's voice blares from the radio, while Mrs. Pratchett is making dinner in the kitchen.
We've been receiving so many calls to our station, asking about this marvelous celebration, the city's bicentennial, which may or may not take place this summer due to budget concerns and weather conditions, according to City Hall. I'll let you know as soon as we have more information available at the earliest opportunity. Now, coming up is the weather forecast. Skies will be clearing up today thanks to a high-pressure front moving in from the mountains. Mild winds will be blowing from the west at about 2 miles per hour, clearing out the clouds by this evening. We're also going to have a beautiful full moon lighting up the skies tonight, so if you've been planning something special, tonight might be the night. As for next week, well, you better pack up your picnic baskets because it looks like the weather for next week is going to be just fine. We'll have more news for you following this musical intermission. You're listening to the Kodono Broadcasting Company.
Then Liszt's An Sospiro began playing, but that did little to lift up her spirits. When Mr. Pratchett went inside, she said, "I've sent the children to their room." "Good," he said. "Guess they told you what happened. I think they'll be okay tonight." "What about you?" she asked, concerned about her husband's nosebleed. "She just punched you like that. It's best not to worry about it. It'll be sore for a few hours anyway." "Don't argue. Here, sit upright on the chair and pinch your nostrils. I'll get you some paper towels so you can clean yourself up." "Where's Katie?" "I tried to talk to her after I told her not to cause any trouble at our neighbors, but she bolted and ran, and I can do no more to stop her. I didn't even go after her in the city. That's where she's heading. I have to call the police right away. Who knows where she'll end up without a responsible person present with her. She could get hurt." "She was probably heading home," she said. "Maybe her home is somewhere in the city instead of the neighborhood." He shook his head. "I don't believe that, love." "She has to. I don't think I ever met her parents before. If she showed up again, I'll ask her where they live so I can talk with them about her behavior." Then she realized something. "Wait a minute. Maybe she feels sorry for what she did, and she fears that you're going to punish her like she's her own. Is that it?" he asked. "I never raised my voice at her until she ran off. Not even my children in a long time. And thank God Malchance didn't spank her like my children." "It could be," she stated. "She's only a child." "So does our children. Only for Constance to say, that's no excuse. Children who are bad bring bad things upon themselves. They're not too young or too stupid to know that. They should learn to never have fun and become civilized. That includes throwing away anything that makes them act irresponsibly. That woman blamed the girl's behavior on my children, and all I ever did was nothing. Because of the girl, they'll start growing up in the morning." She meant every word. Mrs. Pratchett frowned, as if to say, "That crazed lady has really done it this time," and went to comfort him. "Well, to the devil with what Malchance is going to say," she said. "Her words mean nothing to us and our children. They will not start in the morning. That's something she will ever refrain from doing this summer. One of these days, she has to learn that her disciplinary actions aren't acceptable anywhere in the city." "I will call the police," he insisted. "They must find Katie, love. I want to know if she's safe." As soon as he recovers, he made the call. The grandparents, after Todd tells them what happened, were appalled. Grandpa Jack was the most appalled. "That devil woman has really done it this time," he snapped. "I say she deserves what she's got. I'm glad this Katie fellow humiliated her in front of our grandchildren." "Dad, please stay out of it," Mr. Pratchett said when he and his wife went into the room. "Why should I?" Grandpa Jack shouted. "She can let Malchance continue to discipline our grandchildren like this? Let the woman get her own way?" What do we think they're going to become when they are older thanks to her? I'm certain that they'll have terrible childhoods which will follow them for the rest of their lives.
He has a point, Grandma Eliza said. But do all children behave like her nowadays, receiving strict discipline in return?
Of course not, Mr. Pratchett said, smiling at the old lady in the bed. Some do, of course. In fact, quite a lot of them do, but not all. Now, granted, parents all have their different forms of discipline when their children do something wrong. But no one is like Mrs. Malchance.
Say, you're a bratty kid once, Grandpa Jack said. An overweight and screaming one, capricious, spoiled, and throwing tantrums all the time.
That was a long time ago before I got married, Mr. Pratchett reminisces. You were both permissive until one day when you changed and bring authority and respected me. Thanks to you, I became a nice child, helping you whenever you needed help.
So what must you do now?
Grandpa David asked. I've already called the police about Kitty running off into the city, but I don't know what to do about the children now, Mr. Pratchett said. I get the feeling that we've been too permissive about them, but they weren't responsible for making Malchance angry today. It was that little girl. Except Todd and Audrey were the ones being punished, even if they did nothing wrong. And I fear that if I confront our neighbor once more, especially about her behavior, I might end up with a black eye to go with my bloody nose, or worse.
Not that I have to say anything about it,
Grandpa Jack said, his voice hardened suddenly.
I'd do anything to leave the house, just to take a swing at her myself.
Please, Dad, Mr. Pratchett said. I don't want you to get hurt. Not after seeing her so angry today.
That's no concern to me. I would see to it that she will not spend another moment with my grandchildren again. For their own sake, ever since the day they were born, rest assured that I will not stand by and see them ruin their chances of a good, pleasant childhood over the likes of that blasted devil woman any longer. She will rule the day she will ever antagonize them and the rest of my family. I will definitely not have the grandchildren's lives dull and dreary for their summer vacation.
Grandpa David banged his fist, nodding.
Hear, hear.
Forget it, Dad, Mr. Pratchett said. She'll never change. She's never going to stop until she makes them give up fun forever. Now, relax and listen to the radio. We'll have leftover pie for dinner. Night has fallen, and everyone feasts on leftover herring pie. When the grandparents are concerned, Grandpa Jack was the first to speak.
They've been up in their room all day,
Grandma Eliza said.
I never hear them have any fun from up there.
Don't worry about it, Mother, Mrs. Pratchett said. I'm really certain. Then came the buzzing of a doorbell. I'll get it, Mr. Pratchett said as he heads to the front door. That must be the police. Opening it, to his relief, he found two officers standing on the doorstep, named Judith Goodwin and Lester Wilde. Goodwin was in fact a female officer, which may or may not be unheard of at the time. She had short curly red hair and green eyes. Given that she's female, her uniform is nearly different from the one the men wear. Instead of trousers, she wears a long skirt. Wilde was tall, with short brown hair, a brown goatee, and gray eyes. Can we speak with you for a moment, please? Goodwin asked. Please do, Mr. Pratchett said. Has any of the police found her yet?
That's why we're here to discuss about it,
Wilde said. The entirety of Division 4 has searched the entire city all night, Mr. Pratchett. There is no girl with pink hair in the city named Katie. Mr. Pratchett shook his head. Of course there is. I told the station what she looked like. She has pink hair and about the same age as my children. They introduced her to me. Would it be nice if we should talk to them? Goodwin asked. I'm afraid you can't. They're too upset to see anyone. Then I have to agree with Lester. I don't believe nobody saw a girl with pink hair before. There never was. No identification, No name in a register, no address, nothing. Outraged, Mr. Pratchett demanded, "Do you two think that I'm making this up just to waste everyone's time? I saw a girl named Katie running off towards the city. Surely that was proof enough." Wilde narrowed his eyes and said, "I'm afraid that's what it looks like, Mr. Pratchett. If you don't want to make this hard, you need to listen to what we're telling you. There is no girl with pink hair as Katie in our city. Understood?" Mr. Pratchett slowly nodded, without saying anything. "Good," Wilde said. "Seeing that you do, we're calling off the search." He pointed his finger at him. "Consider yourself warned for wasting our time, and the rest of Division 4. This better not happen again. Are we clear?" Mr. Pratchett nodded and said, "Yes, sir." "And one more thing," Goodwin stated. "I do hope you and your family are looking forward in celebrating our city's birthday next month. Good night." As Mr. Pratchett closed the door, the officers made their way back to their car. "Judy, do you think this man seemed to be a bit schizophrenic when he called us on the phone earlier?" Wilde asked. "I have no idea," Goodwin said. "But here's a better question, Lester. Who in the world ever heard of something so bizarre and unrealistic as a little girl with pink hair, especially from Corico?" Mr. Pratchett remained in the foyer in disbelief. His wife approached him. "What do they say?" she asked. "They never found her," he said. "They say that there's no such girl with pink hair. But I think there's such a girl. I think we should go up and talk to them now. There's no way our children will lie to us. Either way, we will get to the bottom of this. We can't have our children stay upset for next week or the rest of the month. But we just don't know what to say." "We will think together," she insisted. "I don't want my children to be upset for the rest of the weekend because of malchance." When they head up to Todd and Audrey's room, they find the children lying in bed. They finish eating the leftover herring pie. Empty plates remain on the desk. "Are you all right?" Mr. Pratchett asked. "Do you think you'll be okay?" "We were just thinking," Todd said. "About what?" "About growing up." "So what do we do if we grow up?" "What are you saying?" "Maybe Malchance is right. Fun should never exist at all, only discipline." "That's quite enough," Mrs. Pratchett said. "We might as well be done having fun forever," Todd said. "You were right all along, Dad. Having an overactive imagination isn't just immoral. It's irresponsible and unacceptable." Mr. Pratchett tried to comfort him. "Well, starting immediately, you two will never visit our neighbor again, if it makes you feel better," he said. "Even after your friend has humiliated her, I say this woman had it coming." "That's right," Mrs. Pratchett said. "I will not have my children be treated like criminals by the likes of our neighbor. We will take action first thing in the morning." "Her name is not Katie," Todd said. "She's not from Corico either. You know, I was told by the officers from Division 4 that there's no such girl," Mr. Pratchett said. "So what's going on with that girl? Who is she? Where did she come from?" "You can tell us the truth," Mrs. Pratchett said. "Whatever it is, we'll believe you. We promise we won't be mad. I don't want to think you two have been lying to us." Todd tells them. "Her name is actually Princess Kitty from KAWAII Wonderland, somewhere in the universe. Remember that little girl with the pink hair and matching eyes? She's actually in disguise. Her real look was taller with cat ears and a tail, wearing a cardinal-colored dress with a pleated skirt, matching gloves with white fuzzy ends and long boots, white tights, and a red choker with a gold bell attached to it around her neck, and a gold crown on top. A princess from another world." "You tell us that you make friends with a princess from another world?" she asked. "I thought she was a friend," Todd said, glowering suddenly. "But I think she's far worse. She tricked a man into an eating contest at the bakery and died of a heart attack. And today she tricked us into pulling her by the ears, causing us to be in her trance, while she wrecks everything. We're finished with that girl. I wish we never met her." "You what?" she asked. Todd got out of bed and picked up a wicker wastebasket. What are you doing? Mr. Pratchett asked. We don't have to start in the morning, Todd stated. We will start right now. He marched to the wall, where he and his sister's crayon drawings were tacked there, and begins tearing them down, crumpling them, and threw them into the wastebasket, one by one. Todd, Mr. Pratchett said, there's still time to have fun for you and your sister. You don't have to do this. Don't throw them away. Try as he may, his words fall on deaf ears. It's just what our neighbor said, Todd stated. Fun makes us act irresponsibly and gets us into trouble. We'll make sure we never get into trouble again. Don't listen to what she said. Forget it! It's time to grow up! No more fun! Just as soon as Todd begins to carry the basket towards the open window, Mr. Pratchett was shocked and had to do something. No! He said, grabbing the wastebasket from Todd. Don't do this! But Todd snatched the basket back, declaring, These drawings are now trash! They're going out! Every single one of them! Finally, at the end of his tether, Mr. Pratchett snatched the basket from Todd and threw it across the room, before slapping him squarely in the face. A morose silence follows inside the room. Todd said nothing, but tears began streaming down his face. Then, You don't have to do this, Todd, Mr. Pratchett said softly, and knowing what he did. You have so much childhood to live. Don't ever throw it away like it meant nothing to you. Then Todd quickly hugged his father and broke down bawling, much like his sister had done earlier. Knowing what he almost did, Mr. Pratchett hugged him back. You two will not stop having fun. You're children. You still have time. I too believe in this girl. You do? Todd asked. Even though I see her in disguise, since you told me she was, I believe. And maybe your mother does as well. Dear, Mrs. Pratchett said. Not now, love, Mr. Pratchett said. Then he takes Todd back to the bed next to Audrey. Now, Mrs. Malchance tells you two to grow up and never have fun again. She's wrong, children. She deserves exactly what she got. I mean what I say. And if you two see this Princess Kitty again, please let me know. We want you to have the right to have fun. And no one, not even Mrs. Malchance, can take it away from you. It's not even against the law. Come on, children. Time for bed, Mrs. Pratchett said as it's time for the children's bedtime. Your grandparents are going to be needing their rest downstairs. Mr. and Mrs. Pratchett left the room. Todd turned to the wastebasket where the pictures are in. Quickly, he got out of bed and pulled the drawings out from the basket before he unfolded them and smoothed them out to normal on the desk. Do you think Kitty will come back tonight? Audrey asked. Oh, sis, Todd sighed, while he placed the drawings back on the wall. Wherever she is, we shall forgive her. When it's done, he turned his light off before lying his head onto a pillow next to her. It was only when they went to sleep that they completely forgot about their confrontation with their neighbor. Pratchett's! It's time for bed! Mrs. Pratchett called out from the living room. Mr. Pratchett was there, turning off the radio. Do you think the children will be okay? Grandpa Jack asked. I've just talked to them, Dad, Mr. Pratchett said. Will you tell me what happened between those two? They told me something unusual about Katie. Katie? What about her? That's not her real name. Then who is she? She's Princess Kitty. She's actually a cat-girl princess from another world. Another world? Grandpa Jack lets out an exclamation. My, how unusual. Now that Katie is actually Kitty, it makes me wonder if she somehow stumbles back to our house again. That depends. I don't know. Mr. Pratchett points at his father's teeth. Your dentures. Grandpa Jack pulled out his false teeth and placed them on the nightstand.
Don't worry, son, he said. I didn't forget them.
Anyway, don't worry about the children now, Mr. Pratchett said. I don't know what should be done to Malchance, but I do know that things are about to change. I know it.
Sleep well, son,
Grandpa Jack said, smiling with his toothless gums. Mr. Pratchett smiled back. Good night, Dad. Soon the lights are off, as the whole family went to sleep for the night, oblivious of what's to come. Indeed, it was that very night of the beautiful full moon and the clear sky, according to the weather bulletin, that the impossible begins to motion, when Princess Kitty comes back, by the time the bells on the Pratchett's tree call out to her. As for Princess Kitty herself, now that she remains in Kodono, very farther from where she's originated, where would she go from here? This concludes Volume 1, Meet Princess Kitty. The story of Princess Kitty of KAWAII Wonderland will continue with Volume 2, Princess Kitty's Adventure in Bomvaria. This work was written by Byron Kingsley and dramatized for audio by the author. This has been a Studio Kingsley production. Thank you for listening.